I walked into my brother's engagement party, already knowing I didn't belong there. Crystal glasses chimed like tiny bells. Music hummed just loud enough to feel celebratory without ever becoming joyful. Perfume clung to the air, too sweet, too heavy, like something trying to mask what it really was. I paused just inside the ballroom, smoothing my hands against my jeans, reminding myself to breathe. Then I heard her. The bride leaned toward her friends, her mouth curved in a smile that didn't bother lowering its voice. The stinky country girl finally arrived. Laughter followed. Soft. Polite. Cruel in the way only polished people know how to be. My chest tightened, sharp and sudden, but I didn't react. I didn't flinch. I didn't look her way. Years of practice had taught me how to disappear in plain sight. None of them knew I was standing in a hotel I owned. None of them knew this night wasn't ending in champagne toasts and empty promises. Before I tell you what happened next, tap like and tell me where you're listening from and if you've ever been quietly underestimated. Because what followed that whisper didn't just hurt. It changed everything. My name is Peyton Burns. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my life, I've learned how to take up as little space as possible. I speak softly. I listen more than I talk. I wear clothes that don't announce who I am or what I've built. Not because I lack confidence, but because I learned early that being underestimated is sometimes safer than being seen. I grew up in a small town where privacy didn't exist and expectations were assigned early. My older brother, Ethan, was the golden child. Teachers adored him. Neighbors praised him. My mother, Margaret, built her pride around him without ever intending to hurt me. It just happened. At the dinner table, his achievements filled the room. Awards, scholarships, promotions. My accomplishments landed quietly, met with polite nods, like background noise you barely notice, but would miss if it stopped. The only person who truly saw me was my grandmother. She had a way of holding my hand a second longer than necessary, as if she were anchoring me to something solid. When I was a teenager, she told me I wasn't a builder of houses or businesses. You build stability, she said. For people, for places, for yourself. She promised me a necklace, an heirloom passed down through the women in our family. She said it would be mine one day because I would need the reminder more than anyone else. I left home at 18 with one suitcase and no goodbye party. I worked whatever job I could find. Front desk, housekeeping, night shifts that blurred into mornings. My feet ached. My hands stayed busy. I ate takeout alone more nights than I can count. I learned how hotels really worked, not just the glamour, but the machinery underneath. I saved carefully. I invested quietly. I moved up without announcements. I never told my family. They never asked. For years, I sent money home anonymously. Mortgage help, medical bills, repairs, emergencies. I didn't want credit. I didn't want gratitude. I just wanted them safe. So when the invitation to Ethan's engagement party arrived late, impersonal, almost accidental, I still went. Some foolish part of me hoped things had changed. That maybe this time, I'd walk into a room and feel like I belonged. Standing in that ballroom, watching my mother beam beside Ethan and his fiancée, Lena, I realized I was still an afterthought. I just hadn't admitted it yet. I drifted to the edge of the room, fingers wrapped around a cold glass, watching the celebration swirl past me like I wasn't part of it. My mother floated from group to group, her smile stretched too wide, telling the same stories. Every sentence began with Ethan's name. When she finally noticed me, her smile faltered. Her eyes dropped to my jeans and boots, then lifted back to my face. She leaned in. Did you consider wearing something more appropriate? She emphasized refined when she mentioned Lena's family, as if correcting a mistake. I came straight from work, I said. She sighed, the same tired sigh she'd used my whole life, and turned away before I finished speaking. That's when I saw it. The necklace. It rested against Lena's collarbone, catching the light every time she laughed. The delicate chain. The familiar pendant. My grandmother's necklace. The one she'd promised me in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and fading hope. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. Lena moved through the crowd effortlessly, collecting compliments like they were owed. The necklace looked wrong on her, not because she didn't wear it well, but because it didn't belong there. I was still staring when she noticed me. She approached with a smile that never touched her eyes, placing a hand lightly on my arm like we were close. "Let's talk somewhere quieter," she said. As soon as we were out of earshot, the sweetness vanished. "I know all about you," she said calmly. "About the money. About how I lived. About how I helped people who never seemed to appreciate it." She tilted her head. "Why do you do it?" Then she answered herself. "Because you're desperate to matter." Her voice was soft, controlled, designed to bruise without leaving marks. "When I marry Ethan," she added, "it would be better if you kept your distance. Fewer complications." She patted my arm, turned, and walked back into the party. My grandmother's necklace glinting against her skin. I didn't cry. I didn't follow her. I didn't cause a scene. Something inside me simply went quiet. The part of me that kept hoping my family would one day choose me closed its door. And in that silence, I understood something clearly for the first time. This night wasn't just uncomfortable. It was dangerous. I needed air, real air. Not the kind filtered through chandeliers and forced smiles. I slipped into the hallway, where the carpet muted my steps and the noise dropped to a low hum. This part of the hotel felt different. Familiar. Controlled. Grounding. That's when I heard voices. Near the service elevators, a man stood with his phone pressed tight to his ear. Howard Whitmore. Lena's father. His shoulders were tense. His voice low and urgent. "After the wedding," he said. "Cash flow. We just need them to believe it a little longer." He paused, listening. Then he mentioned my family. Not by name, but by implication. Our stability. Our ability to help. The call ended. His expression snapped back into place before he walked away. That wasn't panic. That was calculation. I went down to the parking garage and sat in my car. Engine off, the concrete walls closing in. I pulled up old records on my phone. Transfers. Payments. Bills I'd covered for years. Anonymous. Quiet. Consistent. My family thought they were fine on their own. And someone else had mistaken that for opportunity. The pieces slid together too easily. The Whitmores didn't care about love or family. They cared about access. About what they believed my family represented. And if they were wrong, if the money wasn't really there, the fallout would crush everyone. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was confirming. I texted Daniel Cross and asked him to meet me near the service entrance. When he arrived, I didn't explain everything. I didn't have to. Some conversations don't start with words. They start with decisions. I asked him to run background checks on the Whitmores. Quietly. Thoroughly. He nodded once and disappeared. Then I called my lawyer. Rachel picked up on the first ring. I told her I needed options, real ones, fast. No sugarcoating. No delays. After that, I called Hannah. Numbers made sense to her the way emotions made sense to everyone else. Asked her to look for patterns, anything that didn't belong where it was sitting. When I went back upstairs, I wore calm like armor. Composed. Almost detached. The party was still alive. Music spilling through the room. Laughter rising and falling. Crystal glasses clinking in careless celebration. But something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't about an insult anymore. It wasn't even about the necklace. This was about stopping something before it destroyed my family. And if the truth needed to come out in the most public way possible, then so be it. By the time I stepped back into the ballroom, the night had reached that fragile point where everything looks perfect right before it breaks. The music softened. The lights dimmed just enough to feel intimate. A spoon tapped against a glass, signaling speeches. Howard Whitmore was already heading toward the small stage, champagne flute in hand. He smiled like a man who believed the room belonged to him. Lena stood beside Ethan, her hand looped through his arm. My grandmother's necklace rested against her collarbone, exactly where it shouldn't have been. My mother sat near the front, beaming. She had no idea the ground beneath her chair was about to disappear. Daniel crossed my line of sight and gave the smallest nod. Seconds later, My phone vibrated. Hannah, you were right. It's worse than we thought. Another buzz followed almost immediately. Rachel, everything is verified. You're clear. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. Howard cleared his throat and began talking about family, about trust, about how honored they were to be joining ours. His voice carried that polished confidence, the kind built from years of telling people exactly what they wanted to hear. He raised his glass toward Ethan and Lena, spoke about legacy, about building something lasting together. That was my cue. I sent one word to Daniel. Now. The screens behind the stage flickered. A few guests laughed, assuming it was a glitch. Then the engagement slideshow vanished, replaced by a stark white page filled with official-looking text. The room went quiet in stages, like a wave rolling through a stadium. Howard's smile froze. The document on the screen was a financial summary. Clean. Simple. Names highlighted. Numbers rounded. Payments flowing into places they never should have gone. Another page followed. Then another. And another. The same pattern. Different accounts. Different dates. Murmurs rippled through the room as people leaned forward, trying to understand what they were seeing. Howard stammered into the microphone, calling it a mistake. A technical issue. He motioned frantically toward the booth. No one moved. The next image appeared. A photograph of Lena, years younger, different hair, a different name printed beneath it. She went completely still. The color drained from her face, so fast it looked like someone had pulled a plug. Elaine Whitmore grabbed Howard's arm, whispering urgently, but there was nowhere left to hide. The documents kept changing. Reports. Summaries. Clear, undeniable patterns, simple enough for anyone willing to look. Ethan turned to Lena. Confusion flooded his face as he searched hers for reassurance. He didn't find it. My mother looked between them, her smile gone now, hands clasped too tightly in her lap. I stepped forward. The sound of my boots against marble cut through the silence. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. I felt hundreds of eyes lock onto me. Some curious, some shocked, some already understanding. And just before I spoke, I realized something had shifted again. This wasn't just their secret anymore. It was about to become everyone's. They were finally recognizing me for the first time all night. Daniel's voice came through the speakers, steady and professional. He didn't introduce me as a guest. He introduced me as the person responsible for the room they were standing in. I stepped forward and gently took the microphone from Howard's hand. He didn't resist. I'm sorry to interrupt, I said evenly, but I think everyone deserves to know what they're celebrating. Lena found her voice then. She accused me of lying, of being jealous, of trying to destroy her happiness because I couldn't stand being on the outside. The words spilled out fast, sharp, panicked, desperate. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just gestured to the screens. These records were reviewed by professionals, I said calmly. They show a pattern of taking money under false pretenses, moving it through accounts, and leaving others to deal with the consequences. The names may have changed. The structure didn't. Howard tried to step away. Security stopped him, calm, firm, immovable. Elaine began to cry, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, that everything could be explained. That's exactly what this is for, I said quietly. The doors at the back of the ballroom opened. A woman in a dark suit walked in, badge visible. She didn't rush. She didn't need to. Two others followed her. She introduced herself, then stated, clearly, without drama, that there were ongoing investigations connected to the information displayed. She asked Howard and Elaine to come with her. Howard's confidence collapsed in real time. His shoulders sagged. His voice cracked. He tried to say my name like it was a plea. Lena tightened her grip on Ethan's arm. She begged him to believe her, to remember what they had, to not let his sister do this to her. Her voice broke, raw, frightened. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Then he stepped back. I don't know who you are, he said quietly. I don't think I ever did. Something in Lena snapped. She screamed, accusing me of destroying everything, of being exactly what she'd called me earlier. She lunged forward, but security intercepted her easily. As they guided her away, the necklace slipped from her neck. It hit the floor with a sound far louder than it should have made. After they were gone, the room felt hollow. I picked up the microphone one last time. "The food is paid for," I said. "The bar will stay open. You're welcome to stay or leave as you choose." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. The DJ hesitated, then started the music again, softer than before. I walked over to my mother and showed her my phone. Transfers, payments, bills. Years of support she'd assumed came from someone else. She stared at the screen, then at me. Her expression folded inward. Later, Ethan found me near the bar. He didn't speak at first. When he finally did, he just said he was sorry. Not loudly, not dramatically, just honestly. I held my grandmother's necklace in my palm. Its weight felt familiar, grounding. The night didn't end with cheers or applause. It ended with truth. And I realized then that was far more powerful. The days that followed were quieter, like the world had exhaled after holding its breath too long. The investigations moved forward without spectacle. Statements, meetings, careful language, consequences unfolding the way they always do when truth is finally allowed to stand on its own. Ethan came by a few days later. No excuses, no speeches. He looked smaller somehow, stripped of the certainty he'd worn his whole life. He said he kept replaying the signs he'd ignored. I told him healing doesn't start with explanations. It starts with listening. He nodded like that was something new. My mother called after that. Her voice didn't carry authority this time. It carried weight. She said she hadn't known. I told her that wasn't the same as not being responsible. I showed her the records again, the payments, the bills, the years I stayed invisible, so no one would feel indebted to me. She cried quietly, not to be forgiven, but because something had finally broken open. The necklace came back to me without ceremony. I didn't put it on right away. I held it instead, feeling the cool metal settle into my palm like a promise kept, even if it arrived late. We didn't fix everything, not even close, but the pretending stopped, and that mattered more than apologies. Some endings aren't clean. They're honest, and honesty, I've learned, is the first real step toward peace. A few weeks later, I hosted a small breakfast at the hotel. A young woman from a rural town sat at the table, nervous, unsure if she belonged. I made sure she did. Watching her listen, learn, and slowly relax reminded me why I stayed quiet for so long, and why I don't have to anymore. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or made to feel small by the people who are supposed to protect you, this story is for you. Tell me your story in the comments. And if this resonated, subscribe. Because sometimes the quietest revenge is finally choosing yourself.